Okay, now since the launch video, Ms. Brunowski's math classes often play Math Fever, a game similar to a popular television game show, and somebody said Jeopardy. So the game board is shown below. Each category name are 5 cards. The front of each card shows a value point. The back of each card has a question related to the category. Cards with the higher point values have more difficult questions. Math Fever is played in teams. One team starts the game by choosing a card. The teacher asks a question on the back of the card. The first team to answer the question correctly gets the point value on the card. The card is then removed from the board. If a team answers the question incorrectly, the point value is subtracted from their score. The other teams may then try to answer the question. The team that answers correctly chooses the next card. We're at the page, we're on page 9. Here is where our problem begins. We begin at one point in the game. The scores are as follows. You have the super brains who are at negative 300. You have the rocket scientists who are at positive 150. And you have the know-it-alls who are at negative 500. So that's at this point in the game. Number 1, which team has the highest score? You're writing your answers underneath the notes that you took. We're on A1. Who has the highest score? The rocket scientists. Positive numbers are always greater than negative numbers.
Are we going to get a piece of paper?
Which team has the lowest score? The know-it-all. They're further in the hole. The higher the negative number, the smaller the number. So they have the smallest score. Number 2 wants you to find the difference in points for each pair of teams. So this is what they're asking you to do for number 2. Now, it's going to look confusing. Some of you haven't been introduced to these concepts. So what I can tell you right now is an introduction. And just write down what you think right now, at this point in time, you think the answer would be. Now, you already know we're going to take Tuesday to do addition and Wednesday to do subtraction. And each one of those operations will have its own day. It will be clarified for you. But today is just making sense of understanding that you need to know those rules. That you can't operate certain ways if you don't know how to. So that's what today is all about. So even though you're going to run into some challenges that you might not know what to do what you think you should do. Because we're going to go over it. But just do what you think you should do at this point. So they want us to find the differences between those, the differences between those, and the differences between those. Each pair. So knowing that that's what we have to do, what does difference mean? Subtract. So we're going to do negative 300, subtract positive 150. That's these two. We're going to do negative 300, subtract negative 500. That's these two. And we're going to do positive 150, subtract negative 500. That's these two. Now what I want you to do is get an answer for all 3 of those. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Don't ask questions right now. Just do what you think you should do. Sandy, you need a few more minutes? This is subtraction. Subtraction is going to be on Wednesday this week. The rule for subtraction is similar to dividing fractions. You keep the first number the same. You change the sign from subtraction to addition. And then you change the sign of the second number. You remember you flip the fraction? You just change. So if this one was a positive, it's now a negative. And these were negatives, so they're now positive. That's called adding the opposite or the additive inverse. So those are the real rules. So some of you, you got your answer because you didn't know that's what you were supposed to do. So, like I said, the point in this first activity is for you seeing the need to know a rule for operating within both of those realms of the positive numbers and the negative numbers, those integers, the whole numbers, their opposites and zeros, knowing how to operate within those. So, now we follow the adding rules. The adding rules are, if they're the same, you add. If they're different, you subtract. And if you have to subtract, you give the higher number sign to the answer. But if you have to add, you give that same sign that you're adding to the answer. So these are the same, we add. 300 plus 150 is 450. And because they were the same positive, same negative, it's negative 450. That's what you should have got for that first step. If you didn't get that, just change it. Write these notes down. This is what I should have done. Keep, change, and then put the right answer beside of it. It didn't look easy, though, when you didn't know what to do.
So it's negative 450.
Negative 450. Now, these signs are different. When they're different, you subtract. 500 minus 300 is 200. And that higher number, what that means is this one is furthest from 0. So you give that sign because you'll still be in that realm, positive or negative. So you give that sign to the answer. So it will be a positive 200. If it's different, you subtract. 500 minus 300 is 200. And whichever number is bigger, has the biggest absolute value, you give that bigger sign to the answer. So that becomes a positive 200. And then this one, are the signs the same or different? The same. So you add 500 plus 150 is 650. And because they are the same positive, it's a positive 650. So that's the answer to A2. We're finding the differences in each pair. It wants you to use number sentences now to describe two possible ways that each team reached its score. Now, I'm going to do super brains for you, and then you're going to do the rocket scientists and the know-it-alls, their two number sentences before we line up for lunch. So, if I'm looking at how could the super brains have gotten to a negative 300, I'm going to do the simple, easy way. They could have lost a 150 pointer, then they could have lost another 150 pointer, and that's how they got negative 300. Because remember, on this page is where we're at. They could have won a 250. Let's say lost. This will be easier. They could have lost a 250. Then they could have lost a 100. And then won a 50. Very good, Miguel. So that's what they mean by write a number sentence that would explain how they got to the score that they're at. You've got to write 2 number sentences for each one. So right now, before we go to lunch, I want you to write 2 ways that the rocket scientists have got to a positive 150, and 2 ways that the know-it-alls could have gotten at a negative 500.
2 for each.
For each of the other 2, yes.